From the people who help you know your competition, InteliChek presents the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast. The Multi-Point Inspection Podcast brings you news and stories from the automotive world told in an informative and entertaining way. Previously on the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast.
So Volie is the communication platform, is how I see it. It pulls in all of our customer data in terms of ROs, and then we're able to build out these workflows that say, if it's been more than 4 months since a customer had a previous RO, we want to generate a phone call and a text message and an email to that customer. What we were using on the CRM front for sales just wasn't a good fit for the service department, and I reached out to Ashley with Proactive and telling her, what we were doing and what I was looking for, and she just said, hey, we use this company called Volie.
There have been a lot of changes going on at the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast. Your host, that's me, has recently gotten married, went away on honeymoon, moved, and changed studios. And in the middle of all this change, I was trying to get my schedule to align with Scott Davis, who is also a busy man. Scott is the founder and president of Volie. If you've noticed a thread with the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast, starting with episode 11, you're not imagining things. Starting with the interview with Ron Overs from Fixed Ops Magazine, each episode reveals a dealer solution or tool that we cover in the next episode. The Fixed Ops episode led to Proactive Dealer Solutions and Brook.ai, which then led to JD Music at North Georgia Toyota, who mentioned Volie as one of his weapons of choice in his arsenal at his dealership. So as soon as I interviewed JD, I knew Volie had to be the next topic for the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast. Well, Scott was recently out of the country, and I've already told you what was going on in my life, but we were able to catch up. But before my new studio was fully set up. So the sound isn't quite up to MPI standards because of the unfinished studio, but I had to get this interview, which as I had anticipated is a good one. So here is Scott Davis, the founder and president of Volie.
I got in the auto business in 2002 accidentally. I owned a bunch of pizza stores, and I was annoyed that my stores were not getting the marketing done. Well, gosh dang it, then I'm pretty doing it for this whole pizza chain. And then I accidentally started doing service retention for 70 Midwest auto dealers. I'm originally from Cedar Falls, Iowa. Our company's based out of Fort Myers. We started a sales marketing platform that included payments. We always called them their monthly based bank statement. We changed our name to Driving Loyalty. And we worked with about 270 dealers, and we sold that business to Team Velocity in 2015. Well, how Volie got started was we had a platform for dealers to look at the marketing that we'd done for them, and they were like, well, we want to call these people, much like they would with any equity money platform and those kinds of things. And they would ask me questions like, who do I call? In what order? How do I know where I've been? And we just started looking around at the market. When you speak with a dealer, quite often they'll be like, geez, I got a BDC, it's expensive. They don't say it's good or it's bad. They say it's expensive. Or I used to have a great BDC before Brandon left, and it fell apart. And we looked at the very manual process with desk phones, and you combine that with our past experience, and we thought there was a good opportunity to help them add some process and system, and help them turn it into a profit center, so that because they can now manage everything.
While Volie was always intended for dealership BDCs, the COVID-19 pandemic caused Volie, like so many other companies, to pivot.
We always intended this to be dealer BDC software. When we started selling direct-to-dealer in Q1 of 2021, we were right in the middle of the inventory crisis, and so we started selling specifically to service BDCs. Most of our stores use it in their service BDCs, and then quite a few of them now. As inventory is coming back, they need to work these a little harder. They're adding in sales for their they're in a department as well. Who uses Volie? Who's it for? Who needs it? Anyone who wants to measure the productivity of their BDC. Anyone who wants to make their agents more productive, eliminate a lot of the manual work for a manager, and give them real visibility into this. We brought call center software to the automotive space. The people who are looking to improve, to get efficiencies in their agents, we solve a lot of problems for dealer groups.
And according to Scott, one problem that this call center software solves is the desk phone.
Quite possibly our greatest hurdle to overcome is educating dealers that their VoIP system is not a call center platform, is not Volie. Because they're used to using one of the phone systems out there, and most of them do a very good job. But a desk phone, everything's manual. You can't track the time that a agent spends on the phone. The time in between tasks is not measured and monitored. On top of that, you don't get to set forth a work plan for them to follow. Even with a CRM, you can skip tasks. So Volie is call center technology that replaces desk phones. So with an inbound call, there's two main things there. So first of all, we want to take care of the customers who are trying to do business with our dealership. So they answer the inbound phones in Volie. It's immediately served up to the agent who's available, always the highest priority. When they're not on an inbound call, it'll serve them up the next most important outbound call that the dealer wants made. So we were replacing a desk phone. We can give them real numbers for what their inbound drop rate is, help them manage that. When everyone's responsible, no one's responsible. Our platform allows them to have some accountability, and for the calls that do drop, because calls are not dispersed equally, they can call them back in Volie. So our platform allows them to do that and then proactively build their business with Outbound.
And about those inbound calls and drop rates.
I'm guessing at what the number would be, but anecdotally, I feel like if you have a drop rate over 10%, you are not going to grow your service department. Your first task is to take care of the customers who are trying to do business with you. And, it's just hard with current legacy technology to do that. Not only is there no accountability with the desk phone, it's hard to know if you're not matching data who to call back when you do miss them. And it's just fundamental. Right. People are calling dealers because they want help. And every time they call and get disappointed, it hurts the business and the relationship with that customer. That's the first priority with any dealership is to not aggravate their customers. It's very hard with a desk phone to be able to manage that.
And as it pertains to outbound calls, Scott says that another feather in Volie's cap is that it helps streamline the common problem of whom to call next, helping to eliminate time between phone calls.
So if you look at your typical work planner, whether they're working off an Excel spreadsheet or a CRM, in between every call, they've got to look through the list, decide the next action, maybe look up data, manually dial it. Volie sets that strategy with our dealer customers, and then in between every call, we do quite a few data checks to make sure that is still the most current call. Every call is manually dialed, meaning you have to hit a button to dial it. There is no robo dialing in our call center platform. But yes, we have eliminated the time between calls, and that allows them to be a lot more efficient. So for instance, if you speak with a typical service BDC, they'll say, geez, we do 60 to 80 calls a day. Some of them, there's some really good managers out there, and they're getting to 100. They're really, and that means they focus on outbound as well. With Volie, your typical store can take 70 inbound calls a day and 150 outbound attempts per day. If people are on a sales BDC, we have customers making 400 or 500 attempts every day just because of the way we've streamlined their workflow.
Wow. I figure out my new studio gremlin, and Scott gives some amazing stats on how Volie has helped dealerships after a word from our sponsor. Perception is not always reality.
And, there's this perception that the dealerships are more expensive for everything. And InteliChek kind of confirms that that's not the case.
InteliChek helps dealerships become aware of where their prices stand in regard to their competitors.
And InteliChek does a good job of giving us that pricing data to confirm that we're in the market.
And this allows dealerships to make their customers aware of their competitive pricing.
I placed 2 placards in the business center so they could see that while they're over there working on computers. I also placed it in our coffee area. We have a glass wall there, so when they walk in, as they're putting their creamer and sugar in their coffee, they're going to look up and see the pricing for our pricing as well as our competitors.
Introducing InteliShare. InteliShare contains all of InteliChek's promotional tools that you can use to promote your favorable prices, including InteliAds, the printable flyers that you can show off in easel displays, InteliMedia for your digital media boards, and InteliWidgets, so you can show off price comparisons on your website and even let your customers schedule from the widget.
Just having access to that data that they're able to provide gives us a good plan of how we're going to proceed.
Call 877-827-7273 or go to InteliChek.com to find out more about how the InteliShare Series can help you grow your business.
But we have one dealer group that has lowered their staff by about 10 people, and they're over multiple stores. All the while, their outbound attempts doubled, and they're very good at highlighting who their highest funnel people are. They are converting about 30% of the people they speak to on an outbound service retention call. We have a large dealer group in the Midwest that was positive that, Scott, we really hope Volie works, because when we started this BDC a year ago, we haven't grown at all. In fact, we're in some stores, we're a little down. When they plugged in Volie, their drop rate was 30%. They didn't have enough people. They were having them all take lunch at the wrong times. They're now in the 7 to 8%, and they're consistently making 6,000 outbound calls a day. We have a dealer group in Philadelphia that was up 16,342 ROs year over year for 8 of their stores, that they tracked. We have a sales BDC that in their first 6 weeks up their outbound attempts about 40% and had a subsequent appointment rate increase as well, just because of their higher effort.
And here are some numbers that explain why it is so important to know who is trying to call you and why you should call them back.
Right now, it's very hard to call back a customer and know who's called with a desk phone. And if there is just a list of telephone numbers, you've got to match them up as well. So we match customers, and with one click of the button, we dedupe them if they call back multiple times, but it makes it easy for them. Interestingly, we looked at 10.2 million calls, so 6.8 million outbound calls and 3.4 million inbound calls. I'm not certain how far we went back. We went back far enough to get 10 million phone calls in there. Of the drop calls or missed calls, 53% of the people answered, which is way higher than a normal outbound campaign. 34% of those people scheduled an appointment. 74% of them had a previous appointment in the DMS, and we didn't take out status checks. So for all the dealers listening who know that their BDC is handling out a lot of status checks, that 34% is an astounding number. These people are buyers, and you need to give them some love when they need help.
And here is the importance of interrupting your customers, according to Scott, by the numbers.
If you want to grow your business, you need to interrupt people. These are service stats. I put this first plan together with service business just because of the law of small numbers as we're adding more sales BDCs. But with service, if you compare, because a lot of dealers, they must realize, gosh, what if I just did nothing? We're out 2 weeks in our shop, and gosh, I can't believe we could do any more than we could. But I never heard a dealer actually not fit in a customer or turn down a sale. So I think a lot of dealers, they say, geez, what would happen if I did nothing? Well, we took those 6.8 million calls, and we put the people in a bucket who the dealer called but didn't leave a message and didn't reach, and we compared them for a couple month conversion rate to the people they actually connected with. The lift on that database was 51% for the people they connected with. You need to interrupt your customers if you're going to grow your business. The outbound math is pretty simple. So on 100 outbound attempts, you should be able to speak with about 35%. If you look across, like on a service campaign, a 4-attempt campaign, first attempt will be higher, and so on down to 4. If you speak with 35%, you should be able to convert about 30% of the people you speak to, 9 to 10% of your total attempts. So if you're going to grow your business, you need to interrupt your customers, and a lot of it is just based on the number of thoughtful phone calls you can make. And it doesn't matter what business we're in, Brandon. One of the things that always astounds me is, and I got to remind myself all the time, is my customers don't think of me or my prospects as much as I think of them. We know that's all the case, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The dealership's customers are not thinking of them either. And, the good thing is when you make an outbound call to a customer that you can help and with good intentions and give them service, you're either going to do one of a few things. You're going to convert them when maybe they would have forgotten about you and went somewhere else, or you're going to speed up your database. If you can get everyone to come in a few weeks earlier for service, if you do that over enough months in a row, you've got a lot of extra revenue. But, the main thing is customers want to be serviced, they want to be helped, and going out and interrupting people and reaching them support. If you are on a desk phone, and the average phone call that we've looked at is 4 minutes and 4 seconds across all our dealerships, inbound call, that includes transfers and such, so you can lower that. The agent generally isn't staying on if they've transferred to a service advisor. But if an agent is handling 80 calls a day, for instance, and they don't connect with a lot of people they have, or they're doing status checks, and those are very quick calls, they're on the phone very little part of the day for your typical BDC if they're using a desk phone. You do not need your employees on the phone bell to bell for 8 hours. But we target for 85% efficiency, which is about 50 minutes out of every hour. And if you do that, you can make any number you shoot to make.
Another important thing that might sound a little Captain Obvious here, but that can sneak up on service departments if they are not mindful, is appointment show rates.
Okay, we have dealers that do a great job at this. It doesn't do any good to schedule an appointment if they don't show up, right? In fact, it's a penalty because you've scheduled at a time that you've probably taken a lot of the good slots away, and then they'll be sitting empty. Really, a lot of very good dealers have show rates at about 90%. To get there, you need to QA calls with your agents and train them. You need to monitor show rates. You need to do CSI follow-up. You need to do appointment reminders, and it can make a world of difference. We see show rates in stores as low as 60%. Everyone who focuses on it brings it up, but boy, what a punishment if you take up that slot for that service tech and the person doesn't show up. So it's definitely worth managing. You can get to 90%, no question. I just love what we do. Our dealers use this every day. Our daily usage rate is 100%. And we love that we're useful for the dealerships. I feel lucky that we get to work with these awesome dealers. You mentioned JD. Boy, what a treasure. He's probably notorious for doing the best job of using every feature Volie has, whether it's email, SMS, phone calls, etc. I mainly cited phone calls today, mainly because those numbers are really hard to come by through a desk phone, and I thought that would help your audience. But I'm honored to be on this podcast, and we love working with the dealers. I always am amazed that people give dealerships such a hard knock. They're filled with good, honest, hardworking people who really
do a lot for the communities. I think Volie's just lucky to play a small part in helping them run better.
I'd like to thank Scott Davis for giving us some helpful insights into how Volie can help dealerships and for being a good sport with our technical difficulties. You can find the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And be sure to subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. It helps with the algorithm thingy. Executive producers for the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast are David Swan, Melissa Marlette, and Joe Gibson. It is written, produced, and narrated by me, Brandon Barnett. This episode's featured music is 3 Trees by Rest and Settle.